Disdain for ostentatious wealth. That is the 8th of 14 characteristics of Ur-Fascism, written by Umberto Eco. Let's take a look. The followers must feel humiliated by the ostentatious wealth and force of their enemies. He writes, "When I was a boy, I was taught to think of Englishmen as the 5 meal people. They ate more frequently than the poor but sober Italians. Jews are rich and help each other through a secret web of mutual assistance. However, the followers must be convinced that they can overwhelm the enemies. Thus, by a continuous shifting of rhetorical focus, the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. Fascist governments are condemned to lose wars because they are constitutionally incapable of objectively evaluating the force of the enemy." So we're going to take a look. Basically, what this characteristic is talking about is that the people who follow fascist ideology have to have this sort of disdain for wealth and the billionaire class. And the billionaire class is becoming an issue, an issue in American politics, well, in politics globally. So we're going to take a look at an article written by Forward, which is a Jewish independent nonprofit organization. And just so that we are clear on the accuracy of this. Now, this is Ad Fontes Media, which we have talked about. I've talked about in another in another video. What this does is it measures both the accuracy or the factual nature of different media, but also whether they lean left or they lean right. And there is kind of a bar up here that if the news media is falling within this like yellow green bar, then it is probably a fairly accurate source for reporting. So let's take a look. And we can see that Forward leans left, but is fairly high within the accuracy scale. So it kind of lies a little bit above 40, which is a mix of fact reporting and analysis. So that is just to say that I trust this source. Let's take a look at what this has to say. This article is very new. It's titled "Elon Musk is Doing Everything Conspiracy Theorists Accuse George Soros of." Yet Musk's efforts to influence the realms of politics and media remain unchallenged by the far right. This was written February 15th, 2025, so really just a couple of days ago. Elon Musk is an unfathomably wealthy billionaire who has used his financial resources to gain influence over politics, media, and government institutions. If that sounds familiar, it's because right-wing populists have spent years hurling accusations of the same behavior at the liberal Jewish philanthropist George Soros. Influential conspiracy theorists across the globe portray Soros as a shadowy puppet master manipulating global politics and controlling media narratives to serve his own self-interest. Fueled by anti-Semitic conspiracy myths, these accusations have portrayed Soros, and more recently his son Alex, the new head of the family's philanthropic foundation, as the ultimate villain in the far-right imagination, blamed for fomenting civil unrest and organizing election interference. Now, Musk, who has allied himself with the global far right and who actually donated more than $250 million to President Donald Trump's reelection campaign, is doing what Soros has been accused of. His strategic sway over a powerful media platform, efforts to gain global political influence, and engagement with authoritarian figures mirror the very actions conspiracy theories attribute to Soros. Yet, despite this, the right lauds Musk as a visionary while continuing to vilify Soros. The contrasting treatment of Musk and Soros reveals a fundamental truth of today's iteration of right-wing populism. The problem was never billionaire influence itself. It was about ensuring that only a right-wing elite holds power. And if you haven't viewed the video just prior to this one, the seventh of the characteristics of Ur-Fascism, I would recommend that you go back and take a look at that, because it really does talk about this new world order, this conspiracy that there is a cabal that is controlling the weather and manipulating media and manipulating politics for its own gain. It's a fascinating look. On the right, a double standard. Unlike Soros, who influences industries and governments primarily by moving money, for instance, by short selling currencies and funding political and social causes through philanthropy, Musk runs companies that are major players in industries vital to national security, media, and technology. His companies, SpaceX and Tesla, received at least $15.4 billion in government contracts in the past 10 years. And even before he began to engage more directly in politics, starting with his involvement in Trump's campaign, his leadership of those companies and the social media site X granted him extraordinary leverage in the public square. The SpaceX satellite internet network, Starlink, has become a critical tool in military operations, with Musk personally making decisions about its access in active war zones such as Ukraine, thereby influencing the course of conflict. Since acquiring X, formerly Twitter, in 2022, Musk has suspended journalists who reported on him, prompting accusations of silencing dissent, done away with independent fact-checking mechanisms, reinstated banned far-right accounts, amplified extremist rhetoric, and made changes to the network's algorithms that led to the boosting of far-right conspiracy theories. Soros has long faced accusations of covert media manipulation, but the extent of his engagement with the press is almost entirely philanthropic. His foundation funds media initiatives promoting journalistic independence in weaker democracies, like the Peruvian journalist collective IDL-Reporteros, which investigates government corruption. And if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about that, IDL-Reporteros, based in Lima, is an independent program of the Instituto de Defensa Legal, Peru's premier human rights organization. Since its creation in 2009, IDL-Reporteros has published more than 500 investigations on a range of topics, from drug trafficking to the extractive industries. Its stories include an investigation into corruption that forced the vice president of Peru to step down, as well as a series on fraud in the fishing industry that brought about important regulatory changes. So that is the kind of media that George Soros is supporting. The double standard is stark. While many on the right have vilified Soros as having too much influence over media, they've excused Musk's direct control over a powerful global media platform as a commitment to free speech. Vivek Ramaswamy, who is expected to soon launch a campaign for Ohio's governorship, said that Musk's actions protected free speech, but also pushed the anti-Semitic trope that Soros was manipulating Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz from behind the scenes. Now, I am a Minnesotan, and let me just tell you something about Tim Walz. He is a fucking badass. There is nobody who is pulling any strings. Nobody is puppeting Tim Walz. Just saying. Charlie Kirk, a conservative activist, went further, alleging that Soros seeks to destroy speech, while declaring that Elon Musk liberating Twitter will go down as one of the greatest free speech victories in the history of Western civilization. And today, that I'm recording this on President's Day, which is Monday, and because it's a national holiday, there is no school today, so I do have a little person who is desperately trying to get my attention today while I'm recording. So there's that. Hi, are you saying hi, Mama? Oh, that's nice. You're so nice, boy. Thank you.
That's nice.
Thank you.
We spent the weekend feeding USAID into the wood chipper. Could have gone to some great parties, did that instead. I mean, put aside the 10,000 people who work there. This is an organization that distributes food aid and medical aid in the billions. What does this all mean, Eugene? Untrammeled power?
Essentially, right? I was at the press conference today with the Japanese Prime Minister and Trump, and he was asked about Doge, he was asked about Elon Musk, and
Doge being the Department of Government Efficiency, which is a real
it's not a government agency, but it is some kind of group that is getting the keys to the kingdom to go around into these different agencies, kind of rifle through things and seemingly do whatever they want. And the question was to President Trump, is there anything that you're telling Elon Musk not to do? Is there a line that you're telling him not to cross, something for him to not go into? He basically said no. He said, I'm telling him to go. We are, he said, a government, and we should be open, and all of those things should happen. And when it comes to Intel, maybe he said, I will get into it. But other than that, he is allowing a long leash for Elon Musk and all of the seemingly young people who are working for him to be able to do that.
Direct involvement in the US government and beyond. In the week since Trump's inauguration, Musk has rapidly come to wield direct and extensive governmental power through his new Department of Government Efficiency. His reach has become so broad that in late January, after Musk announced that Trump had agreed to shut down U.S. aid, Democratic Republican Jamie Raskin issued the wry reminder that we don't have a fourth branch of government called Elon Musk. Musk now operates at the highest levels of political decision-making with an unprecedented level of governmental access, marking a dangerous shift. Consumer advocates and Democratic lawmakers have raised concerns about his access to Social Security payment systems through Doge and about his unchecked influence over federal programs. Even Republicans, per a Economist YouGov survey, are losing enthusiasm for his involvement. I do have an article here from The Hill, which states that GOP support for Musk influence with Trump falls dramatically in a poll. The share of Republicans who say they want tech billionaire Elon Musk to have significant influence in the Trump administration has fallen substantially in the months since President Trump was elected. In the Economist YouGov poll taken in the days after the November 2024 election, 47% of surveyed Republicans said they wanted Musk to have a lot of influence in the Trump administration, while 29% wanted a little, and 12% wanted him to have none at all. Today, however, the share of Republicans who say they want Musk to have a lot of influence has fallen substantially to 26% from the 47% he had. Meanwhile, 43% of Republican respondents say they want Musk to have a little influence, as opposed to the 29% he had before. And 17% say they want him to have none at all, over and against the 12%, according to the latest poll from The Economist YouGov released Wednesday. And I will put links in here if you wanted to see. This is from November, the poll showing the favorite, how favorable people viewed Musk to be, and then from February, and it shows you the statistics right here. And I'll put links to that if you want to dig into that a little bit more. Yet globally, Musk's reception has been markedly different from that of Soros, with meaningful consequences at home. Soros has been attacked by authoritarian leaders like Viktor Orban, Vladimir Putin, and Recep Tayyip Erdogan because his philanthropy supports democratic institutions and human rights in their respective countries, Hungary, Russia, and Turkey. Musk, in turn, has received praise from these same authoritarian figures and others. He's back there, isn't he? Okay, give me a minute. I'll be right back. Orban praised the billionaire's efforts to cut off funding for globalist organizations. Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele, known for his authoritarian crackdown on his opponents, lauded Musk for undermining U.S. aid. Musk has embraced these endorsements, even reposting some of these statements on X. Most significantly, Putin hailed Musk as an outstanding person after an October report by the Wall Street Journal found that Musk has had multiple private conversations with the Russian leader over the past 2 years and has adjusted his satellite communications policies in response to geopolitical pressures from Russia and China. That relationship with the leader of a country that has frequently antagonized the US has not prevented Musk from gaining extraordinary influence in the US government.
President Trump handed more power over to Elon Musk yesterday, giving the billionaire and his team oversight over hiring decisions across every government agency.
And as Musk's power grows, he continues to post misleading or false accusations against government agencies to his more than 200 million followers on his social media platform, X. During an appearance in the Oval Office, Musk was asked about his false claim that USAID planned to allot $50 million for condoms in Gaza before his team stopped it. Musk said this.
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000.
Hours later, he continued to amplify the same debunked claim. 3 weeks into this administration, President Trump has given Elon Musk enormous power over government agencies that the billionaire's companies do business with.
Yet, Soros's supposed meddling in foreign politics has fueled countless right-wing attacks. For instance, former Fox News commentator Joseph DiGenova, For instance, former Fox News commentator Joseph DiGenova suggested without evidence that George Soros controls a very large part of the career foreign service of the United States State Department and the activities of FBI agents overseas. In 2018, a conservative watchdog accused Soros of advancing a far-left agenda abroad, affecting the governments of Romania, Colombia, Macedonia, and Albania. Musk has now begun to openly support far-right parties with authoritarian tendencies in democratic elections outside the US, including the Reform Party in the United Kingdom and Germany's Alternative for Germany, AfD, which Germany's own Federal Office for the Protection of the Constitution labels a suspected extremist organization.
Well, first of all, I wanted to really say that I'm very excited for the AfD, and I think you're really the best hope for Germany. I think some things that something I think that is just very important is that people take pride in Germany and being German. This is very important. It's okay to be proud to be German. This is a very important principle.
And he's not wrong if he was just talking to general German citizens. Of course, you want your citizens to be proud of being German. It lands differently when you are talking to a right-wing extremist political party.
It's okay. It's good to be proud of German culture, German values, and not to lose that in some sort of multiculturalism that dilutes everything. We want to have something where it's you go to different countries and you experience a different culture, and it is unique and special and good.
Okay, so what he's talking about here is he said that having multicultural in your country is diluting the culture, which is absolutely a fascist ideology, the poisoning of the blood of the people. When he talks about going to different countries and experiencing the differences in cultures there, Yeah, normally I would say that's super cool. Enjoy the different cultures that you find in different countries. But what he's trying to say is let's leave those cultures there and leave our culture here. Separation of the cultures. It is an anti-fascist ideology.
And that the German government takes actions to protect its citizens, and make sure that it seeks the health and well-being of the German people.
Like mass deportations?
So, like, I think there's, like, frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents, or even let alone their parents, their great grandparents, maybe even.
Okay, so what he's talking about here is completely refusing to acknowledge generational trauma. And yes, even if we're talking about great grandparents, that is not that long ago. There are still people in the world today who remember the atrocities of Germany. It is way too soon to move beyond it. Absolutely. Fascist ideology. If you want to know a little bit more about the AfD, here's an article that was written in the AP News. A far-right party is heading for its strongest result yet in Germany's election. Alternative for Germany appears to be heading for its strongest national election result yet this month, and is fielding its first candidate to lead the country. Even though it's highly unlikely to take a share of power soon, it has become a factor that other politicians can't ignore and helped shape Germany's debate on migration, which is, of course, the same debate that we're having here. The fascist governments all play by the same playbook. And in Germany, they have made their far-right party looks to be a third party that does not yet have power. In America, we just decided to hand over a currently existing power, the Republican Party, over to the MAGA movement. So now the Republican Party itself is the far-right extremist fascist movement. Pay no attention to the child behind the curtain. The far-right party first entered Germany's national parliament 8 years ago on the back of discontent with the arrival of large numbers of migrants in the mid-2010s, and curbing migration remains its signature theme. But the party has proven adept at harnessing discontent with other issues. Germany's move away from fossil fuels, restrictions during the COVID-19 pandemic, and support for Ukraine after Russia's full-scale invasion nearly 3 years ago. If you want to know a little bit more about it, I will put a link to this article in the description. But it's essentially the same thing, the same playbook. Looking back then at the eighth characteristic of fascism, 8th of 14 by Eco, he states here that the enemies are at the same time too strong and too weak. So for years and years and years, the far right complained that George Soros had entirely too much power. He had entirely too much money, that he was controlling the media, controlling the Democratic Party. So the Democratic Party, under the rule of the cabal and George Soros, is too strong. At the same time, our billionaire can take your billionaire. So when Trump and Musk won the presidency, they actually started to demonstrate the places where the Democratic Party was weak, because for the first several days the Democratic Party didn't do shit. And the stories that I was hearing from the people that I follow were like, yeah, kids, we're on our own. There ain't nobody coming to save us. So the far right exploited those places where we were too weak. So we are simultaneously on the left too strong, but also too weak. Fascist governments, he says, are condemned to lose wars because they are constitutionally incapable of objectively evaluating the force of the enemy. That is a posit. I don't know if that's true or not true. We're kind of too early in our fascist takeover to know, first of all, if it's going to lead to a war, which I hope to God it doesn't. But secondly, if we did have a war, would we lose? Because we can't possibly fully and accurately assess the strength of the allies. because clear, if we were to go to war with this current government, we would be standing on the side. We would be standing against the side of the allies. We would be standing with Russia and China, Saudi Arabia. So there's that. Anyway, I'm snarky positivity, which means I always end on a positive note. And the positive note is this. I didn't know anything about George Soros before I did this. I mean, ultimately, this is the whole reason why I'm doing this whole channel, is because I'm learning shit alongside you. Like, I'm just figuring out that there is so much I don't know. And the deeper I dig, the more interesting it is. But what I'm finding about people like George Soros, and I would even kind of lump Mark Cuban into that as well, is that there are some very rich and very powerful people that do not stand with the fascists. So the positive note for today is that while nobody might be coming to save us, there are certainly people willing to fight with us. So that is a positive note. I'm sticking with it. I'm Snarky Positivity. If you like the content, please subscribe. I'm working to build up my subscriber base. We're going to be okay. Okay, bye.